Hi everyone, I'm Renee and welcome to my channel. Today I'll show you how easy it is to make this Ninjago Lloyd cake. For this cake I'm using chocolate cake. This is my chocolate cake recipe. I'll leave a link down below to the recipe here on YouTube if you want to try it out. I have two 8-inch rounds that are about 2 inches tall and I have already cut the tops to level them. Just a little bit of buttercream will secure the bottom layer of cake to the cake board. Then fill your cake with your favorite filling or buttercream. Today I'm using just a vanilla American style buttercream. I'm currently working on that recipe. I should have that filmed and up on YouTube soon, so keep an eye out if you're interested. Pop on your next layer of cake and then give the whole cake a nice crumb coat. Once there's a nice even crumb coat on there, I'm going to pop this cake in the refrigerator to firm up just a bit because we are going to do just a tiny bit of carving on this one. The cake has had time to chill, which just firms things up a bit to make it easier to carve. There's not much involved here, but all we need to do is trim straight sides on opposite sides of the cake, and this will help give us the little Lego face shape. Next, I'm going to trim off the top edges of the cake because I want a nice soft rounded look to this. Just try to keep those straight edges kind of straight across so we maintain the shape that we created. Crumb coat the exposed cake and then we'll set this in the refrigerator to let it chill again before adding our final coat of buttercream. Once the crumb coat has had a chance to firm up, go ahead and ice your cake with a generous coating of buttercream and then smooth it to get it ready for fondant. To smooth rounded cakes like this, I use this piece of a flexible cutting mat and I just cut it down so it would be a nice size to fit in my hand. It works really great because you can curve it in your hand and really get in there to make nice curved edges. I'm going to roll out some yellow fondant as the base layer of fondant for this cake. I just colored some white fondant with lemon yellow Americolor gel, and you can achieve this nice Lego yellow color. Then all we have to do is lay the fondant over and smooth it onto the cake. Then trim off the excess fondant, trying to be a little bit neat with that bottom edge. Then I go back with a little ball of scrap fondant. If it's sticky, just dip it in a little cornstarch and buff that fondant to a nice smooth finish. Next, I'm going to roll out some black fondant and we'll create the mask in 4 different pieces, which I found the easiest to handle. So for the top, I'm just going to roll out kind of an oblong shape and I'm going to trim one of the edges straight across just so we don't have too much excess fondant going onto the cake. To make this fondant look like fabric on the cake, I'm going to go in with my fingers and just kind of pinch in some folds. Not hard because I don't want to make actual creases, I just want to give the fondant a little bit of movement and rippling to it. Next, I'm going to just brush the top of the cake with a little bit of water as my glue, and we're going to place this first piece about 1/4 of the way down from the top and lay that straight edge right in that general area. Pinch some of those folds in along the sides and smooth this piece of fondant on. If If you want, you can go back with the end of a paintbrush or a modeling tool just to enhance some of those ripples that we put in the fondant. Use a pizza cutter or a knife and just neatly trim off the excess fondant around the bottom edge of the cake. I've rolled out a strip of black fondant for the sides of the mask. I'm going to divide that in half, and then I'm going to make rounded cuts, and this will go on either side down from the top, and we want it to look like a face hole cut out. Use a little bit of water to attach these strips to either side of the cake. And I'm also going to use my fingers to form some pleats at the bottom edge of these pieces as well. The bottom part of this mask is going to overlap these side pieces, so I'm going to trim off a little bit of extra from the end so I don't have too much fondant bulk here. Don't worry if you end up with a little bit of the yellow poking through. As you can see, I have here. We're going to have a green bandana that's going to go right over this seam and it's going to cover up any imperfections. For the last piece of the mask, we want it to look like folded down fabric. So I have my strip of fondant rolled out and I'm just going to fold one edge under. And of course, we're going to create some folds on this piece as well. When we attach this to the cake, we want to overlap those two side pieces, and this should come up about 1/3 of the way from the bottom so that we have the proportions for our face correct. And of course, use the end of a paintbrush or a modeling tool, and we want to enhance and emboss some rippled marks. Then neatly trim off any extra fondant at the base of this cake. And if you have any spots that aren't stuck down properly, just use a little bit of water and go ahead and tack those areas down. I wanted to make extra sure that I had that symbol correct for Lloyd's bandana, so I printed out a scale size for the size cake I'm making and cut that out. Here I have some of my yellow fondant. I mixed in some Tylo so it'll be a little bit firmer, and I rolled it out, giving it a chance to skin over. Then I'm going to roll that paper cutout into the fondant, and this is going to emboss the design. I don't know if you can really see it on the yellow fondant, but the design is embossed in there, which will make it really easy to go in with a sharp knife, an X-Acto blade, or a scalpel and cut that symbol out. Then I have a gold paint I used by taking some edible gold paint by Rainbow Dust, and I thinned it down with some vodka just to make a nice thin paint for a light gold finish. You could use a gold luster if you want. You just want to make sure it's 100% edible if you are going to be serving this cake and the decoration won't be removed. I'll have a link down below to the Rainbow Dust metallic paint that I like to use. For Lloyd's eyes, I rolled out some leaf green fondant, and I'm going to use the wide end of a pastry tip to cut out 2 circles. Then I'm going to have his face kind of making a scowl, so I'm going to cut 2 straight edges from the top of each circle, making sure that they're the same size. And then I'm going to use the pastry tip again to cut out a little bit from the other side of the circle, and this is going to give the right eye shape for the scowl that we want. For the white reflection marks on his eyes, they're just half circles, so I made a little ball of white fondant, tapped it down to flatten it out, and then cut it in half. Then I'm going to attach this to the green pieces, and the straight edges of the half circles should match up with the straight edges on the green eye piece. For Lloyd's eyebrows, I rolled out little ropes of brown fondant with a tapered end and then tap it down flat with my fingers, then give the fat end an upturned pinch to make the eyebrow shape. The green pieces of the eye are going to sit with the straight edge right underneath touching that eyebrow, and that's going to give us the scowling expression. I'm using an X-Acto knife just to make sure that those tapered ends come to a nice sharp point. And now for the bandana, I rolled out a strip of the leaf green fondant. I'm just straightening up the edges a little bit with a pizza cutter. Then I'm going to flip the strip over so that I'm working on the back side and use a little bit of water brushed on as glue. I'm going to fold those edges in so this will look like the folded fabric of the bandana. Then flip it back over so we can see the front side and what we're working with. And we're going to, of course, create some pleats in this bandana, making sure that the very center stays flat because that's where that gold symbol is going to go. Now back to our cake. I did go over the black fondant with a little bit of shortening. I just rubbed it on with a lint-free paper towel, and that cleans up any cornstarch marks that were left behind. Now using water, I'm going to attach this bandana right over the seam from the top part of the mask and the side pieces, and you want the bottom edge of the bandana to come down about a third of the way so that we'll have the middle 1/3 of the yellow exposed for the face. Then neatly trim off the extra fondant at the base of the cake. The gold paint on that symbol has dried, so now I can turn it over in my hand and use a little bit of water and attach it right to the center of the bandana. Then using a little bit of water, I attached all of the eye pieces. Finally, to make a little furrowed brow, I made a really tiny little skinny piece of rope with the brown fondant, and I'm using a toothpick to get it into place, but I have a little bit of water on there just to attach it down to the cake. And that's it! I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you're a fan of character cakes, why don't you check out my Shopkins cake or these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cupcake toppers.